Hello and welcome again to this edition of Meet the Candidates on WCMU. I'm David Nicholas. This year we are speaking with our guests virtually, joined this time by State Representative Brian Elder, Democrat in the 96th District. He is seeking a third term to represent that district in the upcoming election. Congratulations on the August primary win, and in the first moment or two, a little bit about you, your background, and experience you bring to the campaign.
Thank you very much, David. It's good to see you again. So as you indicated, I'm currently serving in my second term. In the state of Michigan, state representatives are only allowed to serve a total of 3 two-year terms. Prior to being elected as a state representative, I spent 18 years as a practicing attorney here in mid-Michigan. And my practice focused on elder law, probate, estate planning, did a significant amount of municipal legal work. I was the city attorney or outside legal counsel for a number of local municipalities, and also did a lot of work with small businesses, getting them started up, getting their organizations created properly, and helping them to fulfill their business plans. For the last 4 years, I have been working with folks on both sides of the aisle. Have been a part of a significant number of bipartisan packages and have had a firsthand interaction with some of the biggest legislative achievements that we have had during the last 4 years. So in my last 2 years, I look forward to doing more of the same.
Very good, thank you. As now the incumbent seeking the third term in office, the issues that you as candidate and voters that you've spoken with prior to the August vote and now in the time since, the key issues that are being identified for this campaign?
For Bay County, the key issues are always the traditional issues. The economy, the creation of jobs, but just not any jobs. Jobs that pay well, have secure benefits, and provide for a future. Making sure that we have adequately funded public education. Because Bay County is a working class county, even to this day. And the single best route for someone who grew up like I did, I'm a factory worker's kid, to enter into the middle class is through a good, solid public education. Either regardless of whether or not someone goes into building trades or college, for example, it's that public education that really gives us the footing that we need. And finally, just making sure that we invest our tax dollars in a way that actually benefits our community. So that really means things like good public infrastructure.
COVID-19 certainly has impacted everything across the board, and through that lens, if we look first of all at the economy statewide and in particular the district you hope to represent and the impact it's had there, what do you propose in terms of the economic rebuild, restart, reshape, however we look at that, bringing that economy back?
Right. So COVID-19 has hit the country hard, the state hard, and this region hard. During this spring, I effectively became a branch office of the unemployment agency, and that was all of the work that I and my 2 staffers did on a weekly basis. Helped to process literally thousands upon thousands of unemployment claims. It was a lot of hard work, and I'm very proud of how well my staff handled those issues. In addition, what we knew is that we had to touch base with our local business owners and ask them, what do you actually need? So I introduced a bill to eliminate the pandemic waiver for business interruption insurance. Not every business interruption policy has such a waiver, but with the assistance of federal funding, this would be a way to make sure that businesses were not going under when they simply couldn't have customers. And I worked on and co-sponsored things like the social district bills here in Bay City. If you've got the opportunity to visit, everybody should. On the east side of the Saginaw River in our downtown area, it's completely walkable, and you can visit a number of establishments outside safely. And that was a really important thing to do for our small businesses. And those are the types of things that we're going to have to keep focusing on going forward. During that time, really, it was the height of our constituent services. And that could mean anything from helping someone navigate unemployment, but also making sure that businesses were connected directly to the local Chamber of Commerce or Bay Future Inc., which helped to process payroll loans, and simply had to put the legislation and the policy ideas down and kind of take an all hands on deck approach. That's what we're going to need to do going forward also. Hopefully the federal government will do a second stimulus package. I personally think that's long overdue. And unfortunately, I think that's getting tied up in national politics. But after we elect Joe Biden as president, I think that we can start on the right path again.
You mentioned education, and certainly the schools at the tail end of last year and into the start of this current school year have been impacted as well on many fronts. How do you plan to address those? What proposals would you put forth for dealing with education and the well-being of our students?
Right. So today is Friday, September the 25th. Just yesterday, we passed, or just this week, we passed budgets in the state of Michigan. We were fortunate that the budgets that we passed were significantly better than what we were anticipating back in May. On a yearly basis, in late spring, we do revenue estimates, and we try to anticipate what the economy is going to do so that we can craft a budget that's in place by October 1. And this year, because of COVID-19, we were seriously worried about having to make billions upon billions of cuts, dollars worth of cuts. That didn't happen, and that's fortunate. What we know is that for the last 20 years, the state budget has been reduced on an annual basis if you fix it for inflation. As of right now, our general fund budget, and that's kind of the major checkbook for most of our government operations, that budget is exactly the same as it was 20 years ago. But if you fix those dollars for inflation, it means that we have $5 billion less in order to operate our government than we had 2 decades ago. We know what the costs are for finally fixing the darn roads. We know what the costs are to bringing public education up to a fully funded level. And those things fit very easily inside of $5 billion. There would be enough to give tax breaks if we wanted to, if we had simply kept the same funding mechanisms that we had 20 years ago. So that's a real focus for my last 2 years, is to make sure that we claw back every source of revenue we can to make sure that we get the services that we deserve.
And on the subject of infrastructure that you noted, and specifically the long ongoing process when it comes to the roads and bridges, also in portions of mid-Michigan, of course, the impact from the flooding back in May. What are the proposals overall that you look at from a regional perspective, and also specifically for the 96th district that you hope to represent again?
So in the way in which we fund our roads is a bit of an antiquated system. And honestly, it's a little bit of a compromise. My colleagues from Southeast Michigan would claim that my district is receiving an unfair amount of road funding, because if we change the funding formula to a population basis, then our funding would go down significantly. I naturally disagree, because if you run a state that has 83 separate counties, there's a certain level of service that every single county should expect, and that's why the funding formula is the way that it is. There were some conversations last year regarding increasing revenue. I know that Michigan Farm Bureau, for example, was in favor of an increase of the gas tax, and much of the business community was as well. That would have been something that could have made sense if we had reached a bipartisan compromise on it. And we have to look at other sources of revenue going forward because, quite frankly, 25 years from now, we really can't expect that gasoline driven automobiles will be as abundant as they are today. As electrical vehicles become more affordable and have a greater share of the market, then a funding formula that assumes gasoline is not necessarily the way to go. So we're all just going to have to put partisan differences aside and figure out how to raise that money because no one's in favor of simply taking down roads.
Last 2 minutes with State Representative Brian Elder, Democrat of Michigan, seeking a third term for the 96th district. We mentioned that we're putting all of these issues in through the lens of COVID-19. Has this, or do you anticipate any degree of how this may shift the priorities, change the proposals, and the shape of those moving forward because we find ourselves with this extraordinary circumstance?
Well, it undoubtedly will, because the existence of a pandemic simply raises the cost of providing services. My wife is a public school teacher at Bay City Central High School, and right now we are working through the process of when to return students to class. Well, the simply sanitizing the rooms vigorously on a daily basis is a cost that the schools haven't had to face in the past. Making sure that personal protective equipment for both teachers and staff and students is available is a new cost. The way in which we're going to run busing will be something that drives up cost. All of these things that we have to do in order to keep our people safe are going to have to be paid for, and that's going to become an issue in the budget itself.
In the last 30 seconds then with you, sir, a final message that you would want to leave for the voters as they get set to go to the polls.
Yeah. Well, as I said in the beginning, we have some of the most stringent term limits in the entire country. And right now, I know as much, if not more than most of my colleagues. And come January, I would like to be able to put that experience and that know-how to work for our people for another 2 years.
Well, we certainly appreciate your time speaking with us and to the voters in the 96th district. Good luck and stay safe with the rest of the campaign, and thanks so much for your time and joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much. You have a great day.
We've been speaking with State Representative Brian Elder, the Democratic candidate and incumbent for the 96th House District. He is seeking a third term to this office. All qualifying candidates under Michigan election laws were invited to participate in this series. I'm David Nicholas. On behalf of all of us, we thank you for your time this time around, and certainly do encourage you to get out and exercise your right to vote on Tuesday, November 3rd.